Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to the session. Non-domiciled, non-US domiciled ETFs. Very fun, exciting, thrilling topic. Um, well, let's get some clarity on it. Okay, so there's sort of two audiences, there's two categories of people in the session tonight. So the first are people that live in Europe. You're in the club, you live in Europe, you can't buy US ETFs. There are restrictions on that. The second category is you live in Israel, you are not a US citizen, and upon passing any US ETFs that you own above $60,000 have high estate taxes, potentially 40%, when passing on to your heirs. And so we want to find a way to have non-domiciled ETFs that perform very similarly to the US ones we've been talking about. Also, just to note, I think everyone's aware of this, but also in that categorization that makes up the 60 grand, if you have real estate in the US, that's also part of that sort of calculation. So just to be aware of that, because real estate obviously can very quickly add up beyond 60K. Um, just to mention, this is not a session on taxation. The whole goal of the session, success for me in this right now, and again, we can build and expand on this, is that we have a much simpler and solution in place where if we want to buy the US ETFs that are mentioned in the program, we have non-domiciled equivalents, how to find them consistently, and just sort of unpacking that. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for in this mini session. So essentially, Europeans, you have no problem buying individual US stocks. You cannot buy ETFs because of the issues. For non-US Israelis, you can buy stocks, you can buy ETFs, but you have this state tax issue. So again, as mentioned, find non-domiciled UCFs to solve this. Okay. Just one definition. What's domicile? What does it matter? So it's the country where the ETF is legally registered, not the stock exchange necessarily. So US domiciled subject to US tax law. Non-domiciled are subject to Irish law. So again, they can hold things that are equivalent, but if they are in Irish domain, then the taxation laws are different. It can be more beneficial to us. So we are looking for most commonly referred to as UCITS, undertakings for collective investment in transferable securities. This is a categorization within Europe that basically does not have the same um, restrictions that typical US ETFs have. So, for example, in the global US infrastructure ETF PAVE, we can see in the name, often it will say UCITS. That'll be a hint. Okay, this is one that potentially can work for us. As mentioned, this is not tax advice. This is an area where we're just trying to discover US equivalent ETFs versus me saying, here's how state taxation is going to work once you pass things on to your heirs. Okay. And then the context. So our portfolio, we've talked about the protein, the carb, and the stocks. Stocks are essentially not an issue in this case in terms of you can buy them. Everyone here can buy stocks. Europeans, you have no issues. Non-US Israeli citizens do have the same domiciled issue. So if I buy Tesla stock, that goes into my bucket of $60,000 worth of investments that are US domiciled. So that's a separate thing. But really what we're trying to figure out is how to get the protein and how to get the carb, which are more difficult than the proteins. Okay, so a very good resource is the website justetf.com. We'll use it, we'll use other things, but this is sort of a main one that kind of is that's very helpful. The exchanges that we want to buy on, the most common, the biggest ones, the most liquid ones are the London Stock Exchange and the German Stock Exchange. So we're going to see many times different ETFs are listed LSE. This is the ideal one that we want, but this is also fine. So when we see these, we're like, normally when we're buying stuff, we look for the NASDAQ and has a little American flag. Like if I go here for a second, if I look up PAVE, so I see there is a US one. I see there is a London Stock Exchange version. So again, we're just going to get more familiar with some of these other exchanges that are going to be helpful for us. So the two that are the main ones we're looking for, London Stock Exchange and the German one. Okay. Okay, we just talked about this. So
Why specifically, sorry, Malcolm, why specifically German?
I'm preferring almost as much as we can to the London Stock Exchange, but the German Stock Exchange is a large one. What we want is A, places where they're listed, places where we can buy on. So Interactive Brokers is maybe the most common platform to buy non-domiciled US ETFs. You can use others, but I'm going to use Interactive Brokers and we're going to see. But it can't buy all of them. But it more commonly can buy ones on the London Stock Exchange and the German. The London one is even more prevalent. So also this was a question that Leora, who's not in the session, but she had a question was asked was, do I have to buy Irish domiciled ETFs on some kind of Irish exchange? No, they are listed on the London Stock Exchange and the German Stock Exchange. They're just domiciled in Ireland, for example. But basically, these are big liquid markets, so you can get good prices. They show up on Interactive Brokers more commonly. Otherwise, we can't buy them. Like there's the French Stock Exchange. Some things we could technically maybe get there, but again, just when you start to look in Interactive Brokers, you'll see they will not list a lot of these ones that are not on these exchanges. So
Malcolm,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Also, is it you're kind of cutting out? Is it only for me, or is Malcolm cutting out for anyone else? No.
For anyone
Okay,
else?
maybe it's just me.
It's
Okay.
just you, Judith.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
So Malcolm, I
Yeah,
just
not
had a
for
quick
me.
question. No. Okay.
yeah.
Malcolm, I just had a quick question though. Like, if I'm not living in the UK, is it better for me to buy on the German one because it's in euros, or does it not matter?
The main preference we're going to see here. So I'm just thinking for one thing in the room I had as a resource, but I don't see it. Hold on one second. Found it. The main thing we're going to see is we're just trying to find ones that are listed on places like Interactive Brokers. And the most common exchanges that are on Interactive Brokers, the London Stock Exchange shows up more than some of the options on the German one. You can buy either. So if you look up and you're like, look, I can buy again, let's say a Bitcoin ETF, and you have different options, you can choose whichever one you want. You're going to see there's a way we're going to analyze these to make sure it returns the way the real ETF returns. But if you have one on London, one on German, it's up to you which one you want to buy.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, we have the NASDAQ. Now we have US, sorry, not US, non-US domiciled ETF, XNAS. So we have this one. First, what I do, here's the flow, and we'll have the recording. First, I look up to actually make sure that I can buy this. Because a lot of these you'll look up and you're like, oh, it's on the London Stock Exchange. No problem, I can buy it. No, many of them still you'll see are not listed. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to log into Interactive Brokers. I'm still logged in. Great, because it logs you out every 5 seconds. And I go to trade. Then I put in XNAS. Now I see here. Now it's slightly hard to see, but you can see LSE, London Stock Exchange. Great. That's what I want. So I see I can buy it. It's 49, is it euros, I'm guessing, or maybe it's pounds. Let's see. I'll choose that I'm going to buy one.
Pounds.
Again, that makes more sense on the London Stock Exchange. I'll go to market and I go to preview. So now I see here. This is actually in dollars, surprisingly enough, but that's fine. So we're like, wonderful. We have a solution. When I say I'm buying the NASDAQ, okay, here's an equivalent, XNAS. But here's the piece that we want to do. First, I look up the ticker to make sure I can buy it. Because again, as mentioned, some of these seem that you can buy and you can't. So I'm like, okay, great, I can buy it. The second thing that I do is I want to look it up in trading view to actually make sure it performs like the NASDAQ and not some kind of, I don't know, weird version that really doesn't do the same kind of thing. So I go in here. I go XNAS. Which of these exchanges do you think I'm going to buy it on?
London.
Yeah. And again, for Judith, your question, you could buy in the German one here, and we'll look in a second. So I'm going to click on London. Great. Now what I'm going to do is let me clear this out so it's not confusing. I have this. Now I can go to this plus, which we don't normally use, but it's compare. So I'm going to compare QQQ. I'm going to do the US one. Great. How do these look?
The same, similar.
Yeah. So it's the same. It gets a little bit wonky. If I change the time frame, it sometimes like jumps slightly here and there, but as you can see, it basically performs the same. It costs $50, so it's even cheaper than 1Q, and it does just about the same. Let's say now we thought about, hey, the German exchange we'd prefer. So I can go to compare, and I go XNAS, and I'll go to the German one. And again, XCTR. There's lots of German flags here. This is the main one we want. That's the main exchange. So I go here for German. Let me turn this in. Okay, that one is slightly different. So you can see it's slightly more volatile. It goes up higher, it goes down lower. Again, if you want to buy it, you can. What I'm trying to do though is basically just get the equivalent of the NASDAQ. But this is a way for you to make sure you're like, okay, I get that now the XNAS on the London Stock Exchange is the same as the NASDAQ. Everyone with me so far? Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
great. Here we go. And again, I look at the icon. Great. German one as well. Now, looked it up, went to the compare function, compare, put in QQQ. Then I saw they basically do the same. Okay, here's the German one. I guess I just did in real time for us. Great. Now you get a text. Investing Club, I'm buying the S&P. Here's our equivalent of the S&P, VUSD. So first I look up the ticker to make sure I can buy it. Again, these ones I've pre-vetted to make sure they're okay, but you'll see that you might look up other ones and they don't show up. So don't assume by any means that you're going to see everything here. VUSD. That was the right ticker, USD. Okay, and S&P 500, LSE. Great. I can buy it, $112. Okay, USD means it's got to be dollars. I'll put in one here. Don't need a limit. I'm going to buy it on market. Great. And preview. Yeah, US dollars. Okay, cool. So we're in business. We now have the S&P and we have the NASDAQ. Making progress. I can compare it and we can see here we don't need to do it again, but it says done basically the equivalent of the S&P. So great. Now onto the CARB. So scenario one and
Malcolm,
three. I'll do three examples and I'm going to run into one or two troubleshooting kinds of things.
Malcolm,
Yeah,
will there be time for questions at the end?
sure. If you want to throw
Okay.
out a question, you can now. I might answer at the end, but tell me what you're wondering.
QQQ over the last year has gone up 14.5%. VUSD over the last year has gone up only 11.1%. That tells me that there's a huge
VUSD though is
loading.
S&P.
VUSD is the S&P. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool. So keep rolling here. Okay. So here now we're getting to the carb. So we've got the protein down. Again, this is hopefully for a few folks, Judith, Sarah, this is getting helpful. We're like getting things that we can do. And okay, now I want to buy Pave. I think Toby, you bought Pave recently. Pave's done nicely. So I go and I look it
Very
up.
nicely.
Great. And I just go straight here. Malcolm says, I'm buying Pave. And I go here. And then, great. Pave actually just comes up. I see BATS, that's a US exchange, but I see next LSE. Great. So again, some of these will just work. So it goes here. I go to buy. It's $39. Go to one share. I don't need to go through the same steps we've done before. We see in some cases like perfect. Just you will see the equivalence there. And then if I want, I can do the same thing to make sure it performs the same. So I'll go here. Someone run me through. How do I check the performance is the same? What do I put in? Which one do I choose here?
QQQ.
But I want to make sure I'm getting the exact same performance as the US PAVE with the non-domiciled PAVE.
I'll take the
The
one that's
British one,
Chicago.
LCU.
So I'll
Chicago
start
one.
with the LSE one because that's what I want to buy. Let me move. You have to manually remove these comparisons. Okay. So I have PAVE right here. And again, this is the UCITS. That makes us realize, okay, it's non-US domicile. Perfect. That's what we want. Now, how do I compare it to the original PAVE?
The
Who
one on the
remembers what I
Chicago
clicked?
exchange.
What's that?
The one from Chicago.
So click on the plus here, type in PAVE again. Which PAVE should I choose? Yep, the US one here. We can see the flag. Click on it. Let's see now how it's done. Same?
Similar,
Yep.
very similar. Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
same.
More or less.
It sometimes gets a little bit like it's the same. It sometimes gets a little bit strange when I zoom in and out, but you can see it's the same. Maybe slightly different, but close enough that it for what we need. Okay, so we
Are
made.
we not worried? We don't care if the expense ratio is maybe 0.5 to 1% more.
I would say in the case of again, this is a question of if you are thinking seriously about stocks being passed to heirs and want to reduce the estate tax from 40%, which would be for a non-domiciled ETF, to down to 25, then that expense ratio is very small compared to that. But if you're not thinking about that, it's not some, again, I don't know, next 5 years where you think it's a real thing, I would probably just go with the regular US versions. But again, no one can predict health situations. But
And are
ultimately,
you
the
saying,
estate tax should be much higher than a slightly higher expense ratio.
are you saying 25 because in the event of death, if the portfolio is liquidated and then capital gains tax needs to be paid before funds are distributed to heirs, or can the heirs just simply jointly own the portfolio and then avoid the capital gains tax?
This is an area, I'm going to be honest, I do not know the specifics of how it works. I think, Stephen, you actually probably done the most research in the group about it. I don't want to get deeply into that right in the session. There's a question about when that happens. What is the action? Is it automatically liquidated? Is it just passed? And is there a tax event happen? Will only happen when someone sells it? I don't, I haven't looked into that deeply enough. And again, like I want to be hesitant about trying to give tax advice because it's just not an area. My goal is to help grow the money in the market. It's less about the specifics around the situation. Maybe we discuss it further, but I don't have an answer that I know with certainty, so I don't want to give an answer irresponsibly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Malcolm,
Yeah.
if you invest in an ETF on the London Stock Exchange or the German Stock Exchange, are we comfortable that it's definitely not US domiciled?
Yes, because we can see that these names have UCITS in them. They are not US domiciled.
Okay, fine. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure. Okay, so we're making progress. We see that, okay, we know how to get the NASDAQ, we know how to get the S&P, and now we know how to get some of the carbs. PAVE was an easy one. They will not all be that easy, but that's why we're here. Okay, so now, same thing with JEPI. You look up JEPI. Let's see here. I'm going to go first. I always start with Interactive Brokers because if it doesn't show up here, it doesn't even matter. JEPI. JEPI, LSE, great. And as David, UCITS, that is that represents a non-US domiciled ETF.
Thanks.
So we see JEPI, we can just buy it. Same with JEPQ. Great. So again, more of the ones that we're seeing are actually things that we can take advantage of. Now, okay, we've seen that. Now, scenario 2 of 3. I'm buying socks. You know, socks. Has anyone bought socks in the group?
No.
Yes, you told us to.
Okay, hopefully some people bought it. It's done quite nicely. Okay. I try and buy socks. Do I see any socks that's London Stock Exchange or German?
No.
No. Okay, so I'm in trouble. It doesn't exist. So now the question is, what do I do? This will happen. So, by the way, David, I just want to again, let me do one more confirmation on your question. But again, on all the research that I've done and professional I've spoken to, the UCITS signifies it's non-US domiciled. I want to check because I don't want all of a sudden you put all of your money into that and all of a sudden there's some surprise for you later on. I'm coming with a 95% certainty that those are non-domiciled US ETFs. But let me just do one more because I want you to have peace of mind in me as well. But
Yeah, I think you're right, Malcolm. As long as
yeah,
it says UCITS, I think you're okay.
cool. Okay, no socks. Great. Now we're out of trouble. Our feet are getting cold. How to find socks. One, ask AI or search for the industry on just ETF. So I showed you that's sort of the one website that's very good. So I put in I use ChatGPT, I put in Gemini, I put in Cloud. ChatGPT I find is the best one. That's the one I have a paid service for anyway, just for general use. Gemini I have free, so maybe if I paid for Gemini, it might be better. But I use all of these just to sort of for many different things. So I also put questions to them. What's a ticker for a non-US domiciled version of SOX on the London or German stock exchange? It's as simple as that kind of question. You can put it to the free version as well. SMH, okay, domicile UCITS. Great, gives me a lead. It's not the exact same thing, but it's similar. Make sure you can buy it on Interactive Brokers because if you can't, you're wasting your time. So, SMH. SMH, great. And I see LSE. So I'm going to put that in. Okay, I can buy it. Buy one of them. Price is also pretty good, nice and low. So, making progress. Found it here, London Stock Exchange. Then I want to compare it. I'm going to compare it to make sure it actually does similar to SOX, because again, maybe it's going to be different. So I'll do SMH, and I'll buy on the London Stock Exchange. I'm going to compare to SOXX, NASDAQ, and let's see what we've got. Similar. Not identical, but similar. If I zoom out, though, I can start to see if the gap is bigger or not.
Mm.
Okay, it's a bit bigger. It's actually done better than SOX has done. But okay, so we're like that gets us. That still is pretty good, and again, it's done better. It's not identical, so let's see if we can do any better. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. So I saw there was another one on the German stock exchange, VVSM. So again, I go into here because if I can't buy it, it's useless. VVSM. See if it comes up. Sometimes Interactive Brokers is really slow. Hold on. VVSM. Looks like I can't even buy it. So, you'd be like, oh, it's on the German stock exchange. You can buy it. Can't buy it. Let me just make sure that ticker is correct. VVSM. Okay, so even for me to chart it is a waste of time anyways. We can see that it's sort of a little bit more volatile than even the previous one, we SMH. But we're like, okay, so we have one backup option is we go to just ETF. So if I go to just ETF and I type in SOX just to see maybe something's going to come up. Okay, it doesn't have SOX. This is a great site. It lists tons and tons. It basically lists all of the non-domiciled US ETFs. So it doesn't have that, but I can also search by category. So I type in semiconductor. Okay. It actually has a couple options. So I can see here a few of these ones. Let's see which ones have done the best. Okay. And I can put in, let's see, LYSM. Let's see if I can buy that. LYSM. Semiconductor. Great. I can buy that if I want. This is on the German exchange, we can see. Let me put this into here. LYSM. It's on the GetX, which I'm not crazy about, but let's just see. Okay, it's very similar to that other German one, how it had done. So,
can I just say something on this? That
sure.
if you're buying in euros, you have to have euros in your accounts, from what I understand.
Let's see with SMH.
I bought stuff in euros and I don't have euros in my account.
I think they will just convert it for you on the spot as long as you have enough cash.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. So I go here. Okay, so we've got this. Okay, so again, this is what this is. Hold on one second. Let me just check. This is the US market one. I don't want that one. I want SMH,
Finishes at 8.
London Stock Exchange. Great, that's $41, which is even better. It's cheaper. So again, you can go with this one. Not perfect, but it's not so off and it gets a lot of the stuff. But again, you can go into here, you can search. So I searched the category semiconductors. Then I looked, it gives you a list of a couple ones. Looked some up. This is one we just looked at. And there's another one that I looked up a little bit earlier. That was HNSC. Similar, it was just from that list. Compared it, and then I'm like, okay, that actually is very close to, I think, to SOX. Okay, so, okay, are you guys? I know this last step is like a little bit like kind of an extra step more than I think people want to do. I'm going to go into one or two areas beyond this, just for maybe 5 minutes more. Everyone following with me so far, like we're actually finding that a fair amount of the stuff, we can buy all the protein. Decent amount of the carbs are listed, some are not, but again, using either ChatGPT or using just ETF, we can just put in the category and it will bring up some that usually do pretty similarly. Anyone still feeling kind of stuck or not sure?
I have a question. It's Tali
Sure.
speaking.
Hey,
As somebody who, like, I have pounds, some because like I'm originally from the UK. What would my advantage be to be buying a US version versus a UK version, even though my money's mainly in Israel? Like, does that make sense?
yeah. No, Nahum mentioned before it's possible that some of the European ETFs might have a slightly higher expense ratio than the US ones, so there
Mm.
might be a little bit of a higher fee. Even things like I think JEPI has a slightly lower dividend yield, the European version, than the US one. I would say that unless you are concerned about the passing on in the near term or state issues, I think it's probably simpler just to buy the US ones for now. I think that it's and also again, not everything that I share is exactly like the truth is I look for the Magnificent Seven. There's not an
Right.
equivalent to that. So you'll also miss out on just some of them. But I think that the US, because it's more competitive, often the fees are slightly lower and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
I
Sure.
have a question from before. Hi,
Sure.
Malcolm.
Hey.
So my question is that you said about buying from the like non-UK domicile ETFs, that you have to pay 40% tax if you die. But is that the only tax that you're gonna have to pay, or you don't know?
No, so that's more like again, if you're thinking about if that's something that's sort of on your radar in the midterm or whatever to be aware of, you don't want to have too many US domiciled ETFs because when you pass on, there is an estate tax. If that's not something that's a concern for you right now, which I think in your case, Sarah, it should not be, then you'll pay tax when you sell and you make a profit. If you don't sell, you don't pay any tax.
What's the tax that you pay if you sell?
So in Israel, it's a flat rate of 25%. In the UK, I don't know what it is, but we just go literally, what is the tax rate on capital gains on stocks in the UK? Broadly speaking, you're charged 18%, while high rate taxpayers pay 24%. So it depends a little bit on your income level, but somewhere between 18 to 24%. But again, if you Google this or ChatGPT, they'll be able to give you a more in-depth answer, but that's sort of the general span.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And that's only once you sell for a profit. If you sell and you lose money, you obviously don't pay tax. If you just hold on to it for years, you're not paying tax until you sell. That's a tax event. Okay,
Could I
so
just come in on that as well? Because
sure.
in my discussions with Interactive Brokers, he really frightened me when he said that I would have to pay the 40% over the 60,000 exemption, and there would also be a discussion about capital gains tax on top of all that. So I really do advise everyone to speak to their brokers and try to find out what would happen if, because we're talking about big sums here, big tax.
I would suggest you don't speak to your brokers, you speak to your accountants. Because the
Mhm.
brokers, a lot of them, I feel they may not be giving you the full information because they may not fully understand it.
Yeah, my accountant said I didn't ask her about non-UK domicile things, but I asked her about if I were to sell it just in general. And she said if I'm not making over 12,000, this is specifically for the UK, so I don't know how relevant it is, but if I'm not making over 12,000 a year specifically from my investment portfolio, I don't need to claim.
I think speaking to your accountant over someone that works at a brokerage is the right move. I think that there's partial information there, but there's complexity that they can also come up with situations that are not actually representative, and it can sometimes be more positive than you think. Again, I can't speak to who's saying the right thing, who's saying the wrong thing, but I think that that idea, when you're talking about serious amounts of money, is worth it. So let me do 5 more minutes of this, and then I'll do 5 minutes of questions. I don't want this to run super long. Okay, so just looking at this website, also just ETFs, just to get comfortable with it, because it is helpful. Again, if you literally go into ChatGPT and you say, what's a non-domiciled equivalent of this ETF, it will help give you guidance. Sometimes it will not come up with something, and you go to just ETF. So now, if I go here, I go to ETF Screener. Stick with me for 1 minute. This is uncomfortable, and then you're gonna get how the system works. On the left side, it has a whole bunch of different things here. So what it does is you can see here, let me collapse this down. It has fund domiciled. So this really just lists ETFs that are not domiciled in the US. You can see where they're domiciled, and you can see that the vast majority of them are in Ireland, 1,700. Let me move this so it's easier to see. You've got 710 in Luxembourg, you've got Germany, things like that. Okay, so again, this shows the full scope of all the ETFs they have listed. Now, if you go up to different categories, so you can choose different things. You can say, I want ETFs based on equities. So these are not individual stocks. These are ETFs that are based on stocks versus these ones here are on bonds. These are on precious metals, commodities, cryptocurrencies. So in general, equity is kind of where we're looking at. You can have things, we talk about in the CARB, there's geographical diversity. So you can have countries. They have ones for many different countries. They have ones for many regions. So, Eastern Europe, Asia Pacific, all that kind of stuff. They have for sectors, which is helpful. Again, a lot of things. If we're like, look, I'm buying the automotive ETF, you can look it up, or you can just go and see that there's actually sections for many of these ones and tons in tech, which is cool. And then themes as well, which is kind of similar to tech. AI, they've got 12 in here, climate change, esports, kind of all of this stuff. So when you're looking through this, again, that's the main stuff you'd be looking at. You'd probably be looking at and be like, okay, I'm looking for an ETF of a certain kind of sector. I want something in cybersecurity. You pull it up and there's 9 here. And then you can see, okay, these are all UCITS. What I normally do is I go and this is a little bit more advanced, but I'll go periods. And I'll go to 3 years. I'll see which ones have been doing the best. So this is up 58, 59%. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I can see here CBRS, that's the ticker. The first thing I do is look and see if I can buy it, because if I can't buy it, doesn't matter. CBRS. See here. Let me try again. It's like half the time the system likes to chug along. CBRS. Let's see if QQQ comes up or if it's just very, very slow. CBRS. One more time, I'll try it. I'm just going to see if that was the right ticker. CBRS, yes. Okay, it's slow that it's okay, no contact found. So it means okay, it doesn't have that one, but there's again in the list of several other ones. Often it will still have many of these. But that's kind of how you can actually go through and start to see on your own. Again, it's a little bit of like a manual process versus just going to AI and be like, Malcolm said he's looking into metals and mining. Give me a metals and mining equivalent. And even when I did that, when I went to mine, I did XME the other day. So there's no XME here. If I go here, XME. XME does not have a London Stock Exchange. It has this one, but it's not the same one. This is XMED. So I go in here and I go to mine. Show me the results because this is in the mining sector. I don't need cybersecurity. I need mining. Okay. And then you look through this and you're like, okay, rare metals and strategic metals and rare earth. That's essentially what XME is. So you can see here the ticker is rare. I go back in, rare. See if this comes up. Okay, rare. Hold on one second. Okay, rare, London Stock Exchange. Great. This is metals and mining. So then I go in and I will compare that to XME. So this is rare. We can all buy this. I'll go. And using this, okay, rare, I want London Stock Exchange. I'll compare it to XME. Okay, let's see. Oh, there's way too many that we've compared here. Let me remove some of these. Okay, it's not identical, but it does move sort of with it. So, yeah, not so off. But again, it gives us an idea. There's one also I found that does Bitcoin. I think I have the name at the bottom here. But again, like as you start to look, yeah, BTIC moves exact same as IBIT. So you're like, okay, I want to buy one that's a that does that. That's an equivalent. One last problem people have, and then I will open up to questions. Is so again, sorry, just to reiterate the process. I go through. I look up first it on here on Interactive Brokers. If I see it's got it already, for example, we saw Pave. Great. It has it. Done deal. No problem. If it doesn't have it, I look up on ChatGPT. I say, what's the equivalent one of that? It gives it to me. If I can't find, I can go back to just ETFs. I just put in the category name. From there, basically, you'll find some that will fit something fairly close. Then you might go and you might try and buy. I went earlier and I tried to buy one of these. And it said LYSM. You're not allowed to open a position, no trading permission, need to add appropriate trading permissions. Okay, so what I did, I went then to trading permissions. It gave me the option to go more information. I went there. I selected all the countries. I clicked continue. Then it enabled me. 2 minutes later, I was able to buy it. So even this thing of, oh, I don't have trading permissions is not as serious and horrible as it sounds. I just changed it, and then that allowed me to do it. I think that is it aside from one last thing, and I think this was something David, you and I sort of briefly touched on, but it's relevant to a couple other people. So you have a portfolio, and for everyone that's in group 2 that's worried about the estate tax issue, it becomes relevant. So let me share this one thing, and then I'll open up to questions. It becomes relevant over $60,000. Again, that number can change, this and that, but that's sort of where we're at. And what I recommend with your money sandwich is if you know you can buy a non-domiciled US ETF or the NASDAQ of the S&P, I'd put as much of that money into the non-domiciled ones. And then, for example, you're like, I want to buy Magnificent Seven, and there's no non-domiciled version, then that smaller piece goes in to the smaller category of the 60,000. So it's sort of like if if you're near that age or you're concerned about it, as much as you can put into non-domiciled, and then hopefully the remainder outside that will still fit within the 60. If it doesn't, then again, you just need to try and see which ETFs are close enough, or you can just say, I'm going to buy a bit more of the Nasdaq and buy a bit more of the S&P this time and sort of stick with it for now. Okay, questions?
Yeah, Malcolm. Oh.
I have two questions, Malcolm.
Sure.
First of all, people in the group 2, I think it would be wise for us to get together and see if we can get identify who is the best at providing advice on how to navigate this situation. There's a bunch of US and other national accountants and tax advisors who claim to know what's going on and provide services for estate planning. I think it would be wise for us to do that as a group. So if anybody's interested, Malcolm, could you possibly collect names and then we can try to
put in the chat or message me if you're interested. I think that's a great idea. And you can also pool resources. You're going to put together and have one consultation with one person. And,
my issue is that I don't know who knows what, and people are making all sorts of claims, and I just don't want to waste my time and or finances getting wrong advice. So it would be wise for us to pull our resources on that. And the other question that I had was, this is all well and good for ETFs. I'm going to put into the chat here. That's Gemini answering my question about how do I find, does Toyota traded on the NYSE in the States, does that match Toyota traded on the Tokyo Stock Exchange? And my question is that for people in Group 2, if we're holding individual stocks that are tracking foreign companies, it seems to me that it's a no-brainer just to sell those and buy the foreign ticker instead. Does that make sense?
So like I looked up, it's a great question. I was like looking up, can I buy Tesla on the London Stock Exchange? Some companies you can, like Amazon's listed on many exchanges. Some enable you to do it, some don't. There's also just a question of the complexity of whether like, I mean, even let's go right now and I say I want to buy. Okay, tell me. Because there's a practical question as I was going through this, being like, what does Interactive Brokers really allow me to buy? If I say I want to buy Sony. Okay, let's see. Sony, New York Stock Exchange, Mexican. I'm trying to just see. I don't think any of these are the Japanese Stock Exchange. And
the number one, 6758 is the Tokyo one.
Okay, thank you. I'll get the J there. Let's see if it will let me potentially buy it. Okay, I clicked on it, but see. One more time. Sony. More instruments. It's like even when I do that, it still is not like, let's see that another one will actually pull up the chart, for example. Oops, cancel.
While you're doing that, Nahum, I think one of the questions that you have, it's not going to be in the case of Toyota because Toyota is a Japanese company. So it may not make a difference whether it's on the New York Exchange or whether it's
that's my question. For example, I am in Toyota. I'm in TM on the US Stock Exchange, but now that it's clear that we don't want to be exposed to this possible estate tax thing, then my question is, does it make any difference whether I'm owning TM on the US Stock Exchange or whether I'm owning 7203 on the Tokyo Stock Exchange?
My understanding in those cases, again, it's not tax expert, but also I was researching the same question. If it's on a different stock exchange, not US, it's domiciled in that country, then it should not have the same issue. Again, I think talking to a tax expert is a way to go, but I think that's still, I think you'll find a positive answer for that through that discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
because
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Can I just quickly, when I couldn't buy the US ETFs, I started doing a little bit like what you were doing and looking at just ETF and looking for some similarities. And for the S&P, I found this one called SXR8. And I was just wondering, or like, see,
Give me the ticker one more time. Hold on, let me look it up. You're cutting out a little bit. Say one more time what the ticker is.
SPX, and like
I didn't catch the first letter.
NXPS.
NX.
Oh, SXR8.
Right in the chat.
Okay.
The ticker there. That'll help me.
That was one of them, or like
I think that I saw this one. I think the reason I chose the one that I did was because it was a very low cost one. So let's see. Yeah, this one. Let's see the price on. I think that's a question. Yeah, $566. I have no issue with it. It was just I'm like I need to give I want to find one that was low cost, and the other one I think is like $100 by comparison.
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
But but isn't this price similar to the S&P, the real price of the S&P?
Yes, but we don't care. All we care about is if it returns the same. Like again, if I go back here and I'm like, where is this thing? Wow, my computer's like super slow. Up here. VUSD, let's see, VUSD. London Stock Exchange, great. And let me also put an SPYX or SPY. All I care about are the returns, because if I want, I can put $10, I can put $500, I can put 5,000. They all do the same. The first one looks like it does a little bit different. SPY and VUSD. So SXR8, I think actually is not, it's a bit more volatile as you see here as well. Goes down a little bit lower, goes up a little bit more, versus SPY and VUSD are very close.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Do you have a good ticker for AI? So you recommended to me before, like this AIQ, like ages ago when we had our meeting. Do you have a recommendation for AIQ?
See
I mean,
here.
I found one. I just want to know what you think.
Share with me the one that you found.
I mean, I did a bit of research, but I didn't do that much. Where is it? Let me just find it.
I wonder if this
AIQG.
Okay, hold on. So the way I think about it is just, okay, let's look at the actual AIQ.
It's actually up at the moment by 8%.
Great. Okay. So again, even if you choose the right category, it's not exactly the perfect one. So tell me one more time. AIQG, you said.
Yeah.
Great. And as we see, London Stock Exchange makes sense. This looks exactly like it's the same one. You have the same kind of icon. You found the equivalent.
Oh, wow. Brilliant.
Let's just see here. Yeah. I guess it's like, again, sometimes it gets slightly wonky. If I move in, then it's a little bit less, but this is the same. So
you're saying, so you're saying instead of me personally, yeah, with my circumstance, you're saying that it's better for me to invest in VUSD rather than Berkshire Hathaway?
Well, those are two different things. VUSD is the S&P. Berkshire Hathaway, you have access to it because you're in the UK and you can buy Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do right now.
It's the same S&P. On our meeting, you said Berkshire Hathaway was an S&P.
Oh, I guess it's like similar-ish to it in a way. And you could choose between. So you could do VUSD or Berkshire Hathaway. It's up to you.
You don't have a preference for me.
I think either can be okay. But I don't want to get too into specific your portfolio. I think it's just like ping me about that and we can discuss a little bit. Okay. I'm going to wrap unless anyone has questions.
Just quickly, Malcolm, how significant when you're choosing the ETF is the size and the company, the managers, and how long they've been around for?
So I would say that in some of these cases, you can't you don't have a wealth of options. So it's not like you have the luxury of saying, okay, I only want this and this versus a little bit what you have in the US. I mean, if it's a fund that's very small, let's say it's even for me, I'm trying to think about what the size for some of these determines small. Is there one in particular that you're concerned about, Morris, or just as a general
No,
idea?
it was generally like on a Just ETF, it has some criteria, and one of it was suggesting that you shouldn't go for a fund which is less than $250 million or pounds. I don't remember which.
So if you're just looking for your own ones, I think that that's totally fine. What I would say is that the ones that I share in the investing club are aimed to mimic the US ones. So I think that in most cases they do fairly well. So they're not as much of, I guess, a random one as, hey, there's just a small fund that's made their own ETF and no one's really paying so much attention to it. It's very small versus one that, hey, we're trying to replicate a very large US one that then has usually more credibility, more money that's going into it. So if I were to if I say buy, I'm looking at PAVE, and you find the London Exchange version of PAVE, and you're like, okay, this does the same thing. I wouldn't be so concerned about the size. I mean, sure, I would love it to be huge, but I think that regardless, it will do the same as the regular PAVE is. If you're looking at totally brand new ones, yeah, 250 million, but I think that it's hard for me to say that's good, that's bad, because usually they're okay. Sometimes there's some weird thing that can happen where a fund has problems, but it's also very rare. That number seems pretty decent.
Thanks.
I'd like to say something first of all that when I discussed with Interactive, and I was shocked to hear that if I take an Irish domiciled ETF and I put it into Interactive, any Interactive branch, which is an American company, I've basically converted an Irish domicile asset into an American asset for estate tax purposes. I asked my question, I got it from them, the answer, and I would advise everybody who's interested in this to look into it themselves. As a result of this, I looked into whether even there's a possibility of buying ETFs on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and apparently there's not as great a selection, but there seems to be iShare ETFs on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, which mimic the S&P and the Nasdaq. Has anybody had any dealings with this?
What I would say to what you said, Stephen, and I appreciate how proactively you've obviously been trying to research and figure this out and share your findings. And again, I have limited tax knowledge. I know that I work with different accountants, and they often will say, I take this view, and another one will say, I take this view. A common question that comes up is I say, I'm working with someone and they're within 10 years of Aliyah. They have a Maytav Dash account and are investing. I have another person that's within 10 years of Aliyah, and they have an interactive brokers or account or a Fidelity account or something that's based in the US. And the question is, well, if the Maytav account is only buying US stocks and you have a 10-year exemption from capital gains abroad, are those capital gains abroad if you have a Maytav account in Israel, or they're not because all of what you buy is in the US? And one will say you can make a case that even with Maytav, you still are within the text 10-year shield. Those are being purchased outside of the US, and so they are compliant. Another one will say, no, it's within Israel. So even to your Interactive, again, I wish I had a clear cut and dry answer. No, it is okay. No, it is not okay. There also, again, I think that maybe consulting with someone, maybe as a group, you guys try and do it, because different ones can have different approaches. And I don't know that someone at Interactive actually is going to be aware of stances you can take within Israel and what accountants would do in practice. And they probably are going to try and be as conservative as possible so they have the least amount of risk. Just like when you approach a lawyer, they're going to say, here's everything you can't do.
But this was Interactive Israel I'm talking about, not Interactive US.
I
spoke to him in Hebrew.
Israel.
Yes, yes. He said, we're a branch of an American company, and any Irish domicile that's put into Interactive Israel is counted as an American asset.
What about if you open up an Interactive non-Israel one?
Yeah, well, I did, and he said the same thing.
Sorry.
Stephen, if you want to discuss this
Can you
further,
repeat
we can
that? I
discuss it
didn't hear.
offline. But
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical of that.
Regarding dividends, for example, in terms of whether it's a US domicile asset, non-US domicile asset, result of this. And I would like to ask whether anybody's done any research into buying the S&P, NASDAQ, and other ETFs, as we've discussed today, but on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, which means I can buy it in shekels, and it's all sort of in Israel, and it's definitely Irish domicile, and it's nothing to do with America whatsoever. BlackRock, for example, and iShares. I haven't done enough research in it. I've just begun.
I know there are ones you can buy that are basically the NASDAQ and the S&P on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. I need to go and see what the specific tickers is. Yeah, iShares is a common one. Okay, I'm gonna just wrap this up because we're already double the time we were kind of
if we have a
into,
group,
which is partially my fault.
If we have a group, we can look into it and discuss it.
Yeah. And I just want to ask Judith and Sarah, because I know we've discussed quite a bit. Does this give some more paths forward? At least we're starting to see.
But and also, let's say you say invest in stocks or something like that, and then whatever it is, and then you see that, like, you type it into your brokerage account. I'm actually not an Interactive Brokers. You type it into your brokerage account, and it says LSE at the end. If I can buy it, should I do research? Or if it's the same thing, basically, should I just buy, or should I, like, is it, do you hear my question? I'm not really explaining myself so well. Is it the same thing?
I would just put it into TradingView and just confirm.
With everything.
Probably it is, but just like we compared in TradingView, then you know.
Okay, fine.
Judith, anything for you?
Not for now, no. I still have to absorb all of this, and then
We just need to do a little bit
Yeah.
and do it, and then but it actually, as part of this process, I think that I saw there's actually, with a little bit of here and there, there's more than it seemed maybe before.
right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. I'll catch you, I guess, in like
I
2 days or something
appreciate-
like that, or 3 days.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Leah. Bye,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Malcolm.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Martha. Bye, everyone. Toby.
I missed a bit of the session that I'll catch up because from going in the car to the house. So, but thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Sure.